Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?
Far Cry 3 is probably my most favourite game of all time. To this day, it is known as a legendary game, and many people argue that it's the best game of the whole Far Cry franchise. Iconic characters like Vaas have made the game so much more memorable, and I'll be judging on whether it's still worth playing in 2025. So, how good was Far Cry 3? Alright, so let's dive into the plot of Far Cry 3. The story begins with Jason Brody, a young, somewhat naive guy on vacation with his friends on the Rook Islands, a beautiful tropical paradise. But things quickly take a dark turn when they're kidnapped by a group of pirates, led by the unpredictable Vaas Montenegro. Vaas's crew keep the group hostage, and Jason and his friends are left to face an uncertain fate. Luckily, you're with your brother Grant, who has military experience and is able to get you out of the cage. He teaches you how to get supplies, gives you basic stealth tips, and then, once everything seems like it's going fine and that you've escaped,
we're gonna find him, we're gonna free the others, and then we're going home.
You try saving Grant, but he eventually dies, and Vaas, underestimating you, sends you out into the jungle with his dogs and guards chasing you down.
Fucking death! I said get the fuck out of here, you chicken fuck! Run, Forrest! Run!
Jason eventually is forced to get his first kill. This is the first of many, and is where his darkness begins, gradually changing him into a monster. Jason manages to escape the pirate camp early in the game, and this is where his journey truly begins. The opening crisis sets the tone for the rest of the game. It's all about survival. Jason, a guy with no real experience in combat, is thrown into a hostile environment where everything from the wildlife to the mercenaries is trying to kill him. His first goal is simple: get his friends back, but that's easier said than done. The island is massive, with various regions controlled by different factions. The pirates, led by Vaas, are a constant threat, but they're not the only problem Jason will face. As Jason explores more of the island, he meets a variety of characters, each with their own agenda, and some with motives that blur the line between good and evil. The deeper Jason gets into this violent world, the more he changes. At first, he's just trying to save his friends, but the further he goes, the more he becomes immersed in the conflict. When he escapes Vaas's camp and falls into a river, he wakes up to meet a character named Dennis, a tribal warrior who teaches him how to survive on the island and gives him the tools to fight back against the pirates. Jason learns to use the environment to his advantage, hunting animals, crafting weapons, and slowly becoming a force of nature in his own right. The game plays with the idea of what it means to survive. Jason goes from a scared, unprepared tourist to someone who starts to embrace the violence around him. This transition isn't immediate, it's gradual, and the game makes you feel the weight of his choices. You can feel Jason's humanity slip away as he does things he would have never considered before, and that's one of the themes of the game. How far will you go to survive? Then we get to Vaas, the iconic antagonist of the game. Vaas is a psychopath who lives in chaos and violence. He's not just a typical villain, he embodies the game's central theme. In one of the most famous scenes in gaming, Vaas gives his definition of insanity speech, which is basically his explanation of why people continue to do the same things over and over, expecting different results. It's a brilliant moment that ties into the game's broader themes about madness, survival, and what it means to be sane in an insane world. Vaas is more than a villain though. His philosophy and unpredictability creates tension throughout the whole game. He constantly challenges Jason's principles and forces him to question his actions. He's the perfect foe to Jason, a guy who starts the story with no real understanding of the world around him, but slowly becomes more like the people he's fighting against. As the story progresses, Jason learns that the island is divided by several factions, each with their own goals. The pirates, led by Vaas, are the most dangerous, but there are also other groups like the Rakyat tribe, led by Citra, who's friends with Dennis, and the mercenaries, who are after the island's valuable resources. Each faction plays a role in the narrative, and Jason has to decide who to trust, who to fight, and who to align with to get closer to his friends. Citra, the leader of the Rakyat tribe, is an interesting character because she represents a different kind of madness. She believes in the island's power of wanting to turn Jason into a warrior for her cause. She seduces him and manipulates him into fighting for her tribe, even though her motives aren't entirely clear. There's this constant question of whether Jason is being used by others or if he's truly in control of his own destiny. As the conflict with Vaas escalates, Jason eventually kills him in one of the game's most pivotal moments. But this doesn't end things. It actually reveals a bigger threat: Hoyt Volker, Vaas' boss. Hoyt is a man pulling the strings behind the island's criminal operations. He's a cold, calculated human trafficker and drug lord who controls the southern half of the island with an army of private mercenaries. While Vaas is unpredictable and emotional, Hoyt is clinical, professional, and ruthless. Jason infiltrates Hoyt's operation under a false identity, working his way up through the ranks to get closer to him. These missions are darker, more espionage driven, and show Jason fully stepping into a role he never imagined for himself. At this point, Jason has already lost parts of who he was, and going after Hoyt is about finishing what he started, but also about revenge, power, and pride. Hoyt's presence in the story raises the stakes. He isn't just another boss fight, he represents the wider network of corruption and exploitation that the island suffers from. Taking him down is less personal than Vaas, but it solidifies Jason's transformation from a survivor to a killer operating deep in a criminal underworld. Throughout the game, Jason's relationship with his friends evolves. Early on, they're his primary motivation for fighting, but as the story continues, it becomes clear that some of them may not want to be saved. His brother, Grant, is one of the first characters to die, and his death plays a major role in shaping Jason's character. This loss is a wake-up call for Jason, pushing him further down a path of violence. As the story unfolds, Jason is confronted with difficult moral choices. He is asked to sacrifice his humanity in order to save his friends and escape the island. By the end of the game, he has to make a choice that will decide not just his fate, but the fate of the island and the people he's interacted with along the way. After infiltrating Hoyt's operation and working undercover, Jason finally confronts him in a brutal knife fight. It's a tense, violent scene that symbolizes Jason going toe-to-toe with the man responsible for so much suffering on that island. Killing Hoyt feels like the final step in Jason's transformation, from a victim to a full-blown killer. After Hoyt's death, Jason manages to successfully rescue all of his surviving friends, but even then, there's a clear distance between them. They barely recognize the person Jason has become. Without giving too much away about the ending, the game ends with Jason having to make a final choice between two paths. One involves him returning to normal life, while the other has him embracing the madness of the island. The ending forces players to reflect on Jason's journey. Has he become a hero or a villain? Is there a real difference between the two on the island? It's a fitting conclusion to a story that's all about survival, power, and the cost of freedom. Alright, so let's talk about the gameplay, because Far Cry 3 wasn't just about the story. This game was a turning point for the series in terms of mechanics and world design. You're dropped into a massive open world, and you're pretty much free to do whatever you want after the opening. The island's split into two main regions, and it's packed with things to do. Outposts to liberate, animals to hunt, plants to gather, radio towers to climb, all the classic Ubisoft open world stuff. But here, it actually felt fresh. One of the best parts of the gameplay is taking over outposts. You can go in guns blazing or play it stealthy with a bow or silenced weapons. There's a really satisfying loop in how you approach each one, and it rewards creativity. Some people loved going full stealth, others just lit up the whole place. Either way, it was fun. Then there's the hunting and crafting system. You need animal skins to upgrade your gear, more ammo space, weapon holsters, that kind of stuff. It gives you a reason to explore the island and hunt different animals. Yeah, it can feel a little grindy at times, but for 2012 it's very engaging, and it also made the game a bit more realistic. You also unlock skills through a progression tree, and every time you do it, it adds to Jason's tattoo, the tribal tattoo on his arm. It's a cool touch, showing how he's changing physically and mentally. The upgrades feel meaningful, like getting the ability to chain stealth takedowns or shoot while ziplined. As for the gunplay, it's solid. You've got a good mix of weapons, pistols, ARs, flamethrowers, bows, and some explosive toys. It's not super tight like a modern FPS, but it's responsive, and the variety keeps it fun. And then there's the chaos factor. This game loves to throw random stuff at you. One second you're sneaking through a camp, next second a bear shows up and does all the work for you. Fire spreads, enemies panic, animals charge in. It's unpredictable in the best way. One thing that did feel a little underwhelming though were the boss fights. I mean, you'd expect these big moments, especially with guys like Vaas or Hoyt, to be intense, skill based, but instead they're mostly quick time events and are scripted. And it's kind of disappointing, especially considering how much build up those characters got, and they deserve something more interactive. Before we wrap it up, I gotta mention the visuals and the atmosphere. For a game that came out in 2012, Far Cry 3 still looks great. The island feels alive, lush jungles, deep caves, abandoned bunkers, and wide open beaches. There's a real sense of place here. The day-night cycle, weather changes, and environmental details really sell the setting. Even if the graphics are a little dated now, the art direction still holds up. Far Cry 3 didn't just revive the series, it redefined it. Far Cry has been copying its formula since. This was game changing, pushing boundaries in not just gameplay, but tone and storytelling. For me, I'd give Far Cry 3 a 9.7 out of 10. It's a game that holds up really well even today. The story, the world, the freedom, everything about it just works, and it does what it sets out to do perfectly. Sure, there are a couple of small flaws, like the scripted boss fights, but they don't take away from how fun and memorable the game is. It's one of the best open world experiences out there, and my favourite game of all time.